I had just finished restocking the allergy meds for the third time that morning when I heard Melissa's laugh. Shrill, practiced, performative. That idea about rotating senior customers to the express counter, she said loudly, smiling at our manager Don. Totally mine. Just came to me over my third latte. I froze mid-step. The rotation system was mine, something I'd quietly suggested in the break room a week ago, complete with a spreadsheet I'd left on Don's desk. I'd even color-coded it. Don chuckled, patting Melissa on the back. Smart thinking. That's what I'm talking about. Initiative. I stood 5 feet away. Not invisible. Just irrelevant. That moment didn't surprise me. It just confirmed something I'd been pretending not to know. I was the wallpaper of everyone's life. Present, familiar, and utterly ignored. My name is Janelle Harper. I'm 27, and for most of those years, I've been told in subtle and not-so-subtle ways that I'm too much or not enough. At home, my mother, Marcia, only seemed to look at me when she needed someone to blame. My stepfather, Clayton, treated me like an unpaid maid. And Bailey, my half-sister, the influencer with flawless eyeliner and 1 million followers, used me as her personal punchline. Once, she live-streamed me scrubbing the floor with the caption, "When you raise a daughter and a maid in one." Thousands of likes. I wasn't even tagged, just humiliated. Every comment that said, "She looks depressed," or "Why's she so bitter?" echoed through our house like gospel. Marcia never defended me. Clayton rolled his eyes and called me sensitive, and Bailey just laughed and kept filming. So when Clayton announced the family was going on a healing trip to the Sawtooth Mountains, my first instinct was no. "I think I'll stay back," I started. "Don't be selfish, Janelle," Marcia interrupted, slicing into her tofu like it had insulted her. "Bailey wants this. We need to go as a family." That word, family. It always came wrapped in barbed wire and expectation. I nodded, like always. Told myself it was just 3 days. I'd survived 27 years. What's one more weekend? The SUV ride up the mountain was tight and suffocating. Bailey hogged the front seat, live streaming with a glossy filter and a sugar-sweet voice. "Road trip with the fam," she giggled to her followers. "Let's see if my sister can survive nature without Wi-Fi." Flames and laughing emojis flooded her screen. I sat behind her, squished between 2 duffels, forgotten and silent. When we arrived at the clearing, the roles locked in instantly. Clayton barked orders. Marcia offered passive-aggressive affirmations. Bailey filmed. And me? I hauled tents, collected firewood, cooked dinner, scrubbed the camp stove. "Here's our chef mule," Bailey narrated midstream. "5-star Forest Service, right?" I muttered. "Could you not?" 3 words, low and even. Clayton's head snapped up like I'd cursed at his grandmother. "This trip is a test," he said slowly. "Some of us will pass. Some—" His smirk finished the sentence. That night, after chilly and more humiliating live streams, Clayton told me to gather firewood, alone. "There's a clearing about 15 minutes back," he said. "Let's see if you can do at least that right." I looked at Marcia. She looked down. So I went. I didn't cry, didn't beg, just walked into the dark with a flashlight that flickered like it was on its last breath. Branches scratched my arms. The wind whispered secrets. 15 minutes. That's what I told myself. Just grab the wood and come back. But when I returned, everything was gone. The tents, the stove, the car, the chairs, even the damn marshmallows. Gone. A folded paper sat on a rock where the fire had been. "Let's see if she can survive a little wilderness adventure." Sharpie. Mocking. Beside it, tangled in the grass, was Bailey's silver star bracelet. She never took it off. My knees gave out before my thoughts did. This wasn't a prank. It wasn't a test. It was betrayal, calculated, cold, broadcast-ready cruelty. I sat there, holding a bundle of firewood like some tragic metaphor, until the stars blurred. Maybe they'd come back. Maybe they were filming nearby, waiting for the tears. But they didn't. 2 hours passed, then 3. The cold slipped into my bones like an old enemy. I curled up where the fire once was, arms wrapped around my knees. And for the first time, I said it out loud. Not to anyone, just to the trees. If I survive this, I'm never going back. If you've ever been the one left out, even after trying your hardest, type 1. Let's make sure we're not alone anymore. I was mopping the front aisle of the co-op, still smelling like lemon oil and road dust, when Melissa from the pharmacy walked in, wearing my old smock. My heart stopped. I stepped behind the bread shelf, peering out like a ghost haunting my own past. There it was, my name tag, slightly scratched, still clipped to her chest. She must have swiped it when I packed up my locker in a rush. She laughed, tossed her hair, charmed the barista like she'd always belonged here. Yeah, I used to train this super quiet girl who worked here before. Sweet girl. Not cut out for retail, though. Couldn't really handle people. I stared, frozen. I hadn't quit. I had vanished. Left a voicemail at 2 a.m. from a gas station off the I-84. She had filled my place like I never existed. That moment hurt more than the night in the woods, because now I knew. They didn't just leave me. They replaced me. 2 days earlier, I had crawled out of the forest, blistered, sleep-starved, throat like sandpaper. Roy, the trucker who picked me up, didn't ask questions, just pointed to the front seat and said, "You look like you've seen a ghost." He dropped me off at a one-pump gas station on the edge of a town that didn't have a name on the sign. I used the station phone to call a number I hadn't dialed in 12 years. Robin? Silence. Then, "Where are you?" She arrived 4 hours later in a beat-up Jeep with Oregon plates and steel in her posture. She didn't ask what happened. She just opened the passenger door and said, "You don't ever have to explain it if you don't want to." I cried for the first time then, just a little, just enough to believe her. Robin's cabin smelled like cedar smoke, tea leaves, and safety. A crooked little structure at the edge of Bend, with a wind chime made of old spoons and 2 cats that only blinked when I entered. She gave me the couch, a mug of chamomile, and a sentence I wasn't prepared for. Work heals more than pity. There's a co-op down the road looking for help. It wasn't glamorous. I stocked shelves, rang up wildflower honey and organic quinoa, but no one filmed me scrubbing anything. No one rolled their eyes. Cynthia, the manager, actually smiled when I got things right. She asked if I preferred mornings or evenings, as if I got to choose. It was so foreign, I nearly cried again. That's where I met Travis. Tall, quiet, grease-stained mechanic who dropped off deliveries every Wednesday. He didn't talk much, but when he said, "Good morning, Janelle," it landed differently than "Hey" or "You again." It was like he saw me, not past me. One morning, he handed me a coffee in a dented thermos. "You looked tired last time," he said. "Didn't know how you take it, so I just guessed." It wasn't flirting. It was kindness, and I realized how long it had been since I received kindness without a hook. 3 weeks in, Robin handed me a dust-covered box from her attic. "These were sent to you years ago. Your mom returned every one of them unopened." Inside, dozens of letters, sent from Laya Harper, my grandmother. The name hit me like a ripple in cold water. I remembered her only in flashes, a soft voice, pressed flowers, stories about wolves who refused to obey. Each envelope was dated. Some had dried petals inside. Others, charcoal sketches. One contained a line I would never forget. "Your father left a small trust for you just in case. He wanted you to chase your art, even if your mother didn't." I sat on the floor and felt something uncoil in my chest. Grief, maybe. Or rage with nowhere to go. At the co-op, I started helping Travis organize his invoices. He wasn't good with numbers. The more I looked, the more confused I got. Prices didn't match. Part numbers duplicated. A $40 filter listed 3 times. "You're being overcharged," I told him. "Consistently, from Big Al's garage." His jaw tightened. "They've been trying to buy me out for years." I stayed up that night scanning everything into neat folders, made a spreadsheet, logged every duplicate. 2 weeks later, after we submitted the complaint to the local trade board, Big Al's was under audit. Travis just handed me a fresh wrench and said, "You're more than good with numbers. You're dangerous with them." It was the first time dangerous felt like a compliment. Then came the call. Blocked number. Midnight. This is Dylan Reeves, Clayton's son. I didn't breathe. I know what he did to you. I know what he did to me. My fingers hit record. Why now? I asked. I saw your name in a local clip. Figured you didn't know the whole story. I've got documents, trust fund fraud, forged contracts. I can prove what they did. The call dropped. I sat there staring at the ceiling fan, heart racing like it had finally caught up to the past. I didn't know what came next. But for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid to find out. If someone ever tried to erase you, but you came back sharper, type 2. Let's make noise for every comeback story still being written. The email subject line read, Bailey's in trouble. We need you. I almost laughed. I was standing at the front counter of Travis's shop, invoice clipboard in hand, grease on my wrist, and a fresh Harper Boundaries Fund logo sticker drying on the delivery van outside. Business was picking up. The scholarship fund was about to launch. For the first time, life felt earned. But there it was, an email from Marcia, as if 3 years of silence could be undone with a few guilt-laced sentences. Bailey's being sued for selling fake crypto. Clayton's bankrupt. You're still family. Still family. That phrase had always been a leash. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Instead, I picked up a folder labeled Harper Trust Evidence and drove straight to Boise. I chose the diner on 8th and Vine because it sat halfway between my world and theirs, the literal and metaphorical middle ground. Time-worn booths, plastic menus. No one wore masks here, not literal or emotional. Robin came with me. She sat 2 booths down, sipping coffee, silent backup. When I entered, Marcia stood too fast, arms already outstretched in a rehearsed hug. I didn't return it. Clayton, still in his dealership tie like nothing had collapsed, leaned back like he owned the table. We need $20,000, he said, skipping pleasantries. You can help. No apology? I asked calmly. We're in crisis, Marcia whispered. Bailey was taken advantage of. Bailey, sitting with sunglasses propped on her head like a crown, finally spoke. You act like we abandoned you. It was a joke. You took it too far. I didn't flinch. Instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out a small white envelope. What's that? Clayton asked, voice clipped. I slid it across the table. He opened it slowly. Inside, a check for $18.75, dated 3 years ago, bus fare from Sawtooth to Ogden. That's what you're worth to me, I said. His jaw tightened. Marcia let out a broken sob. Bailey scoffed. Then, like a director calling, action, the diner door swung open behind me. Kendra Walsh stepped in, toddler on her hip. We hadn't spoken since high school, but I'd reached out 2 nights before, asking if what she knew was still true. She walked up, chin high, gaze fixed on Clayton. On E. She's lying, Kendra said, pointing at Bailey. Bailey and Clayton ran the crypto scam together. They pitched it as a rebranded family business on TikTok, used Janelle's name to sell the redemption arc. Bailey turned pale but said nothing. Marcia looked like she'd aged 10 years in one breath. Clayton's voice went low and cold. You think this makes you better than us? No, I replied. Just free. Back home in Bend, the story spread faster than wildfire season. A local tabloid headline read, Crypto Collapse, the Harper Secrets. Dylan had sent it in. Not proud, he told me over coffee, but it felt fair. I nodded. We do what we need to, then we move on. And move on, I did. With the remaining money from the trust, the part they hadn't siphoned, I bought a small house on the edge of town, slanted roof, stone well, a backyard shed that I converted into my art studio. The Harper Boundaries Fund launched the following month. Our mission: help girls raised in silence find tools for independence, trade school scholarships, financial literacy workshops, mentorship. We didn't need a fancy gala, just a town hall, fold-out chairs, and stories like mine. At the podium, I looked out at people who had never abandoned me: Robin, Travis, Cynthia, Kendra, Dylan. It's not about running away, I said. It's about choosing what you'll run toward. But the past always tries to claw back. One evening, a letter arrived. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. Bailey. I messed up. Mom's in a bad way. I wish we could go back to when we were little. Please write back. Something about the phrasing scratched at my memory. I dug into Laya's old letters and found it. A note Clayton had once sent her. The same rhythms, the same manipulative tone, word for word in some places. I stared at it, heart a quiet storm. Then I fed the letter into my studio's wood stove, watched it curl into flame. Some bridges, I whispered, are meant to burn. Weeks later, a package arrived. Inside, my childhood sketchbook, restored, pages laminated, torn edges mended. No note, no sender, only one drawing untouched, my dad's faint smile, brush in hand. I didn't know who sent it. Maybe Dylan, maybe Kendra, maybe even Bailey. But this time, I didn't need to know. I framed the drawing, hung it by the window that faced the sea. On the first clear Sunday of spring, I drove the restored '67 Mustang up the coast with Travis. We parked near the same forest that once held me hostage. Grass had grown over the fire pit. The rock was still there, worn smooth by weather. I stepped out, holding a small bouquet. Dried lavender, eucalyptus, sage. I scattered the petals into the breeze. No prayers, no forgiveness, just peace. Back in Bend, I drew one final sketch. Me, wind in my hair, feet on the roof of the Mustang, eyes on the horizon. Beneath it, I wrote, not the girl who got left behind, the woman who kept walking. If you've ever walked away from the ones who tried to break you and built something better, type 3, this space is for you.